Game development can be incredibly challenging to start off in, especially as a beginner. Whether or not you want to turn it into a career or simply develop your dream game, it can be challenging to understand where to start, what resources to use, and how to best utilize your time. Well, my name is Brennan from T.M.M, and today I want to talk about the tips and tricks I wish I had known when I started game design. And by the end of this video, I want you to understand exactly how to start on your game development journey. So let's take a look at that list and where exactly you should begin. Let's go ahead and discuss point number 1, which is starting small. As an analogy, if you dump a puzzle onto the floor and start pushing pieces together, you're going to take a really long time to finish the puzzle. However, if you find the corner pieces and the edges pieces, and you start on those first before filling in the rest of the puzzle, it's going to take you a lot less time, and the entire process is going to be a lot easier. The same concept applies to game design. If you jump into Unity or Godot, start watching tutorials, and just start plugging things together, you're not going to understand how anything works, and you're not going to be able to produce a coherent game. That's where starting small comes in. Take time to understand A, coding, and B, what the actual process of developing a game looks like. Now, to do this, I would strongly recommend using Pico 8. There's an education edition that's free on the browser, and more importantly, this limits your scalability. It has a limited color palette, limited line count for code, and more importantly, it has very user-friendly features. On top of that, the community support and tutorial count for this is incredible. So if you're looking for a good place to start small, develop itty-bitty little projects before you move on to something like Godot, I would strongly recommend it. I've already got a video for it, so if you're interested in learning more about how to use Pico 8 and what resources I would recommend, please go check out that video after watching this one. Point number 2 is also very important. Learn, don't copy. There's a common trope that goes around, especially between new game developers, that is called tutorial hell. It's where they've spent months just watching tutorials, copying exactly what they see on screen back into their game engine, and then they realize they don't understand how any of it actually works. And more importantly, if they try to code themselves, they can't. And this is actually a fairly easy fix. It's a lot more difficult in the short run, but in the long run, it actually teaches you exactly what you're supposed to be doing, and it's a very good practice. Essentially, instead of watching tutorials and just copying exactly what they're doing into your game, what you should do is watch the tutorial, take notes, and then actually try to implement what you've learned through your notes and what you've actually retained into your game. If you have to watch the tutorial multiple times, that's good. And more importantly, you should be utilizing tutorials that don't give you the full answer right away, just the foundation of it. That way you can implement your own knowledge, your own understanding, and your own circumstances into games specifically. This is a very large problem that I personally ran into when I first started learning game design. I spent 3 months coding my own game, which was really just me watching tutorials, copying exactly what they did into my game engine, and then not understanding why I didn't know what was going on. More importantly, when I took time to make my own game, which was me just trying to make a Pong clone, I essentially wasn't able to do that. And it was super frustrating because I essentially spent 3 months learning nothing. So, in short, make sure that you actually are taking time to sit down and understand what you're watching and what tutorials you're using are actually trying to communicate. Instead of just copy and pasting exactly what you see, take time to learn what you're doing and understand exactly what's going on. Point number 2 is a lot less technical than the others, but it's equally as important. It's a concept that I like to call profit versus passion. When you start on your game development journey, you need to ask yourself, why are you doing this? And then set that as the foundation of your development. If you're just trying to create your dream game, then have fun with it. Don't stress about not understanding things, and just take time to understand exactly what you want to do. Be slow. devote maybe like an hour a day to it, and just have fun with the entire process. It's not that big of a deal, and at the end of the day, you don't need to sell 1 million copies if it's just a passion project. However, if you're trying to make money from this experience, then the most important aspect is to be realistic with what you're trying to accomplish. If you're trying to create the next massive indie game, trying to develop your own Stardew Valley or Undertale, you need to understand that those are 1 in a million success stories. The chances that you as a beginner are able to create something that the masses equally adore and love is mildly unrealistic. I hate to break it to you, but the people that developed those games had prior experience in game design. And more importantly, they spent years making those games, pouring love, passion, blood, sweat, and tears into them. I'm definitely not saying that you can't create your own spectacular indie game, but also it is really important to understand that you're about to set off on a 5 to 10 year journey where it's going to take you resources, motivation, energy, and all of the focus that you can possibly do so that you can create a beautiful game like these. Realistically, you just need to ask yourself, if I'm trying to make money, am I really willing to devote years of my life, all of my motivation, and push through each obstacle that is presented in front of me, especially as a beginner, to produce a legitimately beautiful game? And if not, don't give up. Just take it slow. Start working on things for passion, not for money. If you want to turn it into a career, maybe think about applying to a game development firm. But overall, just take it slow. Make sure the process is enjoyable and apply your passion to every experience, even if you are trying to make money. Make sure the process is fun, because if it's not fun for you, then your motivation's gonna tank pretty early on. Point number 4 segues pretty well from point number 3, and that's resilience and motivation. Game design and game development is challenging. Again, one of the most challenging things that you can possibly pick up as a beginner. So you need to understand that going into this process, it's not going to be easy. If you're not motivated, passionate, and resilient to failure, then you're not going to be able to succeed. You need to put yourself either in a headspace where you're constantly having fun on this journey, or you need to be extremely motivated and in a good headspace so that you can keep learning and pushing through all of the trials that are present within game design. I am not going to try to peddle you some schedule or some self-help ideology that will get you through being motivated. Every human being is different, and it's going to take a lot of effort on your part to build the foundations to be motivated enough to sit at a computer every single day, at least for an hour, so that you can learn and understand these processes. Developing a schedule that helps you stay motivated, more importantly, understanding when to not get frustrated, when to take breaks, when to get good rest, and how to take care of yourself is something that you have to learn on your own. But if you don't have those schedules, learning how to game design, learning how to code, and I mean pretty much doing anything in life is going to be way more difficult. So take the time to understand how to develop yourself as an individual before trying to pick up a task like this. Finally, point number 5, which is pretty simple: scope and scaling. Let's say that you take time, maybe months, to understand the basics. You're motivated, you're making good progress, you're learning, and it's time to move on. You've developed some small projects in Pico 8, or maybe even started your hand at Godot. Now it's time to actually scale and create your first legitimate project. And this is where a lot of people screw up. When you start developing your first game, a lot of people start to expand and create scope like no other. Scope creep is a huge problem, especially as a beginner. If you start tacking on a bunch of features when the foundation of your game doesn't even work, then it's gonna fall apart. I've personally been subject to this on many occasions. If you've watched my previous videos, especially my game design ones, I screwed up because I just kept adding on feature after feature after feature until I didn't even understand my own code or game anymore. The thing that most people start off with when coding is like Vampire Survivors. It's a fairly simple game that is linear, and you can't get too overly complicated with that. But if you jump in and say, I want to create an FPS shooter that has crafting mechanics where you run around, and I want to add a super cool physics system, you're not going to be able to do that because you just started learning. Maybe at some point down the line you'll be able to do that, but understanding the scale and scope of your game is important. Just because you already started small doesn't mean when you move on to the next steps, you don't have to start small again. Create a foundation, create a topic, create a core mechanic for your game, make it simple, and start with that. And then slowly ease your way into the more complicated game design. All right, and that's all 5 points. Start small, learn, don't copy, passion versus profit, resilience and motivation, and scope and scaling. With all 5 of these concepts in mind, it should be fairly simple to start on your game design journey. It's still going to be challenging, but this is a fantastic foundation for understanding where to start. I'm going to be posting a lot more videos, both on resources that I think are very useful for beginners, along with a lot of reviews on different products, concepts, and tutorials that are extremely helpful for beginners. So please, if you're starting your game design journey, or if you like this content, like, subscribe, and stick around for a lot more resources on how to begin your game design journey. I'll slowly be posting more tutorials, more concepts, and more ideas as I continue my own journey as well. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you find a lot of this information helpful.